All right. Welcome everyone to the March 2022 5 miles from anywhere meeting. We are an international organization. We will always meet online, virtually, and we have members from around the world, which is always very exciting. So a couple of things just to start us off. So we'll do a little bit of announcements. We don't have too many today. Then Steve Mason will give his talk on Sherlockian autographs. Probably have a little bit of discussion time. And then I'll just introduce the 5 miles topic for next month, which is another pretty exciting one. So I'm very excited. We've been having some awesome talks here, and I appreciate everyone who has been willing to present. And if you have an idea for a meeting topic, or if you'd like to present a Sherlock Holmes story, please let me know. We're always looking for presenters. And we always meet the first Saturday of the month. So one announcement, Madeline wanted me to announce that 221 BCon is happening April 8th through 10th. And it is still, you can still register for it. You can still book a room. Madeline, are you on? Let's see.
Yeah, I'm on. Hi.
Hey, do you want to say a little bit about it?
I mean, I'm not really part of the team that does 221 BCon. I just wanted to, make sure that people remembered that that was a thing that is coming up really soon. And actually,
Sure.
Just the other day on social media, the 221 BCon team posted that it's only a couple of weeks left to book a room or volunteer to be a panelist. Yeah, it's gonna be here before you know it.
Excellent. It's cool. It's in person. Shana, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I've got the tweet pulled up. 221 BCon, the last day to book your room is March 18th. Also, this Sunday, midnight Eastern Standard Time, is the last day to apply as a panelist.
Oh, okay. Excellent. So there's still time to even apply as a panelist. Perfect. All right. Excellent. Okay. I just wanted to announce, come on, slide. Slide's not moving. There we go. Okay. That the journal Steel True Blade Straight that I'm putting together right now, we're still looking for articles or stories or poetry even, inspired by Sir Arthur or Sherlock Holmes. The journal has been endorsed by the Arthur Conan Doyle Society, and I'm real excited about it. But if you are a writer and want to submit for it, it's already pretty exciting. We've got some good names in there, and it would love to have your entries. Ross Davies is gonna do the introduction. Bonnie McBird's gonna do the foreword. It's gonna be a great anthology. So I look forward, if you have any ideas or would like to submit, let me know. Thank you. All right. Steve Mason. Well, I could go on and on about Steve. Steve's an amazing guy. I'm sure we all know that. Right? So Steve wanted me to mention that he was one of the founders of the Legion of Zoom. And if you haven't heard of the Legion of Zoom, if you go to 17 different virtual Sherlock Holmes groups or join in at certain different meetings, you can join the Legion of Zoom and you get a cool Zoom background. And so, yeah, it's really cool. They did a great conference. I think it was a couple weeks back. I stayed for about half of it, and it was really some awesome talk. So I hope that you guys continue to do more of those presentations, Steve. I really enjoyed that one. Steve also does the Baker Street Elementary comic, which is on I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere every Sunday. So you get the Sunday Sherlock Holmes comic, and it's a lot of fun. And here's Steve. Here's me presenting Steve. It's a blurry photo, I apologize, with the Beacon Award this year for all of his education efforts with passing Sherlock Holmes' love to the next generation. And it was a well-deserved award on his part. And then, of course, Steve is also heavily involved with the crew of the Bark Lone Star, the Texas Sherlock Holmes Scion Society. Did I miss anything, Steve?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, cool. Then, my friend, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to let you take over, okay?
Okay.
And I'm going to mute most of us except for our presenter here. And you're on, my friend. Very excited for this one.
All right. Well, before I get started, I will mention that if you did not get a
Steve, somehow you accidentally got muted. I don't know how that happened. Hold on a sec.
Okay, I'm
I
back
don't know
on.
what happened there. Sorry about that.
If you did not get a chance to go through our Legion of Zoom conference a couple of weeks ago, we have posted all the presentations and the radio play up on our website. So, Rich, if you wouldn't mind, you could post the link in the chat. And so if anybody, there are some wonderful presentations by some great people. And then we also posted the toast that were made by Rich and Sandy. And so we're very thankful about that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into my presentation. There's only 750 slides, so I think we should be able to get through this in an hour without any problem. But I do appreciate the opportunity to share my autograph collection with you today. But before I get into my collection, I do want to mention what are other things that Sherlockians collect. Well, we know in the canon itself that there were butterfly collections, skull collections, Indian gems, plugs and dawdles, obviously, ancient weapons, ancient coins, Chinese pottery, and even South American utensils. And even Sherlock Holmes himself had a collection of books in the empty house when he was acting as the book collector, such as The Origin of Tree Worship, British Birds, Catullus, and the Holy War. So it's not surprising that so many Sherlockians collect Sherlock Holmes books, including first editions, pirated books, or other varieties. But there's so many other things that people collect that relate to Sherlock Holmes. Maybe you collect the largest collection of foreign editions of Sherlock Holmes and then realize you can't read 99% of them because they're all in different languages. Now, a few people have a little bigger collections than the rest of us. If you happen to go see Glenn Maranker's exhibit in New York, you know what I'm talking about. And then there was another gentleman, John Bennett Shaw, who is reported to have had the biggest collection in the world, and it's now at the University of Minnesota Library. Now, a few hardy and dedicated Sherlockians collect those items mentioned in the canon as being in the sitting room to recreate the room themselves. This is Denny Dobries in Reading, Pennsylvania. Some collect the various adaptations of Holmes on the big and little screens, whether it's TV or movies. Some collect pastiches, and they have thousands and thousands of them. So there's stamps galore if you want to keep busy on those cold winter evenings up in the north. Or maybe you want to collect Christmas cards or other greeting type cards, as Sonia Featherson has over 500 of them. Or maybe you want to collect those games and toys surrounding great detective. Tim Klein in Dallas has over 500 different games and toys. Or maybe, strangely, you want to collect the original artwork of Sherlock Holmes. And this guy here, I understand he's got a few of them himself. I think he's got the same shirt on today. Or comic books. And Ralph Hall has thousands of comic books that are Sherlockian related. Or maybe you collect Sherlock Holmes pornography. And strangely, I just couldn't find an appropriate picture for this slide. And I had just scratched the surface of the things that you may collect. So, a very history of my own collection. For several years, I had attended stage plays in which Sherlock Holmes was portrayed by some very excellent and a few not so great actors. I would attempt to get the actor playing Sherlock to sign the playbill or program after the performance. So by 2015, I probably had 20 or 30 of such programs that had been signed. But in the life of every collector, I'm sure there is a seminal moment. Mine was in 2016 when I discovered that Howard Ostrom was looking to sell his Sherlock Holmes autograph collection, or most of it. If you do not know him, Howard, in my estimation, is one of the foremost authorities on Sherlockian portrayals in film, stage, and on TV. After days and days of nonstop negotiation, actually it was really more like 15 minutes, a reasonable amount was agreed upon, and I became the proud owner of another 120 or so autographs that Howard had collected over the years. Now, a few ideas randomly showed up in my mind, and as some of y'all know, okay. And so, unfortunately, sometimes those random thoughts go down to my mouth, which is a bad thing. But in my own mind, a few of the random thoughts that came up was, I need to get serious about collecting autographs of those who portrayed Sherlock Holmes in some manner. I would never become an expert on the people themselves. I'm going to leave that to people such as Howard, Ashley Polisek, and other eminent Sherlockians that I have all the respect in the world for, that know a lot more about these people than I do. And quite honestly, this is just fun for me. And there's lots of people to try to get autographs from. Howard has a compilation of over 7,600 different people that have portrayed him in one way or the other. I don't think I'll ever get all those. But my autographs tend to fall into 2 or 3 categories, and with 1 or 2 subsets of each of those. There are those that portrayed Sherlock Holmes on film and TV, which we'll get into in a minute, those that portrayed Sherlock Holmes on stage, and just those that fit into a miscellaneous category, that they don't really fit into anything else. Now, for the film and TV, I could easily split them into 2 subsets. Those who are famous for playing Sherlock Holmes, and those who are famous actors who happen to play Sherlock Holmes. And this will make sense in a minute. Now, realizing that the autographs collection has now grown to over 700 autographs, it would be impossible to show all of them to you, but I can show you some of my favorite ones from each of the categories. For example, for those who played on the stage itself, Alec Baldwin in August of 1987, Charlton Heston, who may be one of the biggest names that had played on stage as Sherlock Holmes in 1990 or in 1980 in The Crucifer of Blood. James Gardner played him in 1982. Leonard Nimoy in The Interior Motive in 1975. And of course, Fritz Weaver in 1965 in Baker Street. Now, moving on to the miscellaneous category, there's a few notable ones, and this has nothing to do with politics whatsoever, as you might see, but Rush Limbaugh actually posed as Sherlock Holmes on his own magazine cover one time. Rudy Giuliani, there was a cartoon drawn of him addressed as Sherlock, so I got his autograph. J. Edgar Hoover, there was a wonderful political cartoon with him dressed as Sherlock, so I've got his autograph. And then Lloyd Bridges, and it's very hard to see him, but this is Lloyd Bridges sitting back there, right there, dressed up as Sherlock Holmes for an advertisement for a Prop 10, which was in California at the time, way back, back in 1980. And then Kirk Douglas, believe it or not, did a Maxim coffee commercial in Japan and dressed as Sherlock Holmes through the entire commercial. And you can actually find that on YouTube. So I've got his autograph too, which I'm very proud of. And strangely, there's a couple of burlesque style portrayals. There's actually been about 8 or 9 people, and I've gotten autographs from 3 of the people so far, and a few others have promised that they will send me their autograph, where they dress up as Sherlock Holmes and then undress as Sherlock Holmes too. Now, as I said, for the TV and film category, it's easy to break it down into 2 subsets. Those who became famous or more famous by playing Sherlock Holmes, and those that, that their star may have risen just a little bit higher as playing Sherlock Holmes. So the first subset, those that became famous or more famous, got Ronald Howard from the 1954-55 series, got his, actually a couple of his autographs. Ellie Norwood, a famous silent actor from the 1920s. Johnny Lee Miller and Lucy Liu, I've got both of their autographs from the Elementary series. And of course, Basil Rathbone with all the movies and the hundreds of radio plays that he did. I think one thing that's interesting about his autograph card, look who signed underneath it, Mary Pickford. And I'm still trying to figure out what those two had in relationship that she signed the same card as him. Got Jeremy Brett here with Edward Hardwick and David Burke's autograph. David signed it a little bit small for some reason, but I've got both of theirs. Peter Cushing with Nigel Stock and Douglas Wilmer from their series and movies. And of course, Benedict Cumberbatch here and Martin Freeman from their television show. and Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law from their two movies. Now, let's look at people who played Sherlock Holmes just once or twice in their career, so it was not a big thing for them. But one of my favorite ones, Mr. Magoo, Jim Backus. He actually had Sherlock on one of his cartoons, but he also dressed up as Sherlock and played him one time. So I've got Jim Backus, and if you don't remember, he also played in Gilligan's Island, obviously, as Thurston Howe III. Jack Benny played Sherlock several times on his radio show and on his TV shows, and this is with Basil Rathbone. Mel Blanc, if you remember the Super Snooper, and of course the big one, Deduce, you say. Michael Caine, and I've got Ben Kingsley's autograph also from Without a Clue. John Cleese, obviously, from Monty Python, but he played in the Strange Case of the End of the Civilization as we know it, and dressed up as Sherlock Holmes, so I've got his autograph. Johnny Depp, who was a gnome, Sherlock Holmes, so got two of his autographs. And Stuart Granger, you might remember him, was a very famous movie actor back in the 50s and 60s, but he played that in The Hound of the Baskervilles in 1972. Alec Guinness, one of the biggest movie stars of all time, and he dressed up as Sherlock Holmes just for one scene, but the promos also had him dressed as Sherlock Holmes in The Detective from 1954. Our own Dallas native, Larry, not only in the show Dallas, but he's from Dallas, Texas also, Larry Hagman, who played in The Return of the World's Greatest Detective in 1976. Bob Hope, who dressed up as Sherlock Holmes and for a movie that he did, My Favorite Blonde, or Brunette, I'm sorry. And of course, Ian McKellen, Mr. Holmes. And then of course on Saturday Night Live also. Peter O'Toole, who did 4 animated movies. So I've got a couple of his autographs. George C. Scott and Joanne Woodward from They Might Be Giants, one of the better, I think, Sherlockian portrayals, even though he's not technically Sherlock, but he dresses like him and thinks he is. And Owen Wilson dressed up as Sherlock Holmes in Shanghai Nights even. Oh, and I already covered. Boris Karloff played him back in the early or mid 50s. And somehow I ended up with a menu from a restaurant signed by him. And I think Sardi's is still open in New York. It's an Italian restaurant. I opened it up and their prices are probably a little more expensive than they were then. A dinner was like $3 back then at a Manhattan restaurant. So I'm guessing it's a little higher now. And even Cher dressed up as Sherlock Holmes on her own show, the Cher Show in 1975. And Roger Moore, Sherlock Holmes in New York in 1976. And Orson Welles, of course, we remember from the 1938 radio play itself too. All right, now, one of the things that I would like to also point out to you is that I have a few people over the years state they wanted to collect things in the Sherlockian world, but they did not feel that they had the capability to become an expert on everything that they collected. And I would tell them that's perfectly okay. There are millions of people who collect autographs, newspaper clippings, memorabilia of various celebrities, athletes, political figures, without becoming an expert on the subject itself. They don't, just because you collected Mickey Mantle's, baseball card doesn't mean you have to know every stat that Mickey Mantle ever did, unless you're Jerry, of course. And for an example, you may remember a child actor named Billy Gray, who starred in Father Knows Best, The All-American Family Before the Cleavers from Leave It to Beaver. But he was also in the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still in 1951 with Michael Rennie. And he was also in a movie called By the Light of the Silvery Moon with Doris Day in 1953, where he dressed up as Sherlock Holmes as a little kid. Guess what? I found out he's still alive and has a website and actually wants to hear from people. So I sent him an email, guessing my chances of hearing back from him were pretty slim. Amazingly, within a few days, I received a very simple email back from him on the way, which I wasn't too sure what that meant, but I was like, okay, we'll see. Well, sure enough, about a week later, I got 2 autographs from him. One of him, from Michael Rennie, and the other one by himself. He did not have any pictures of himself dressed as Sherlock, but I did run them off here where he's playing that. But I was so thankful that he signed the second one, Billy Gray, aka Sherlock. And this man is in his mid-80s, and he actually sent me 3 or 4 emails about how much fun it was to dress up as Sherlock and play him in a movie and everything else. But I think what's even more intriguing was he sent me a picture of what he looks like in present time. I think he looks a little bit like Leonardo da Vinci. But he seems to be a very nice man, and he was very honored that I actually remembered him and asked for an autograph. That's what the fun of this is. It's not trying to become an expert on every person that's played it. Again, I'll leave that to other people, but it's just chasing down some of these people and finding out, And so 2 questions I received many times is, what's your most valuable autograph? And I'm sure Jerry gets the same question with his artwork collection sometimes. For me, that's a tough question to answer, as I've never taken the time to actually determine what the monetary value of each autograph might be worth. But my definition of what most valuable may be is, what is the most irreplaceable ones? And for me, there's a couple of them. The first one is I have 2 letters signed by William Gillette. I can't replace those. Those are one-of-a-kind letters that he wrote back in the 1920s and 1930s. And so that they will never be able to be replaced if I lost them. And the same thing, if you're not familiar, Harry Arthur Saintsbury, he was kind of the British version of William Gillette. He played Sherlock Holmes over 1,400 times on stage. So he actually did it more times than William Gillette. I was able to get 3 letters signed by him. And one of them, he's actually mentioning thinking about writing a new play. And I don't know whether that was a Sherlockian play, but in my mind, I like to think that it was. And of course, the other one that may be irreplaceable is some guy named John Sherwood that signed an autograph for me too. John, thank you very much for doing that. He's on the call today and played Sherlock many, many times over the years. Now, the 3 autographs that I probably cherish the most, though, and no, Don Knotts and Tim Curry is not one of them, even though I do get a kick out of them playing Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. But the 3 that I probably cherish the most, the person that made all this possible for us. So I have 2 Arthur Conan Doyle autographs, which I'm very proud of. The second one, Jerry would understand, Bill Melendez, who was one of the animators for the Peanuts shows, and also was a producer for it. And these are 2 pencils that he drew of Snoopy for It's a Mystery, Charlie Brown. But he also played Snoopy and Woodstock. He was the voices of both of them for up until the last movie. And unfortunately, he passed away, I think, last year or year before last. But I love Charlie Brown and the tie to Sherlock Holmes. And I gave a talk about that one time. So I'm very thrilled. And I actually wrote to him and got a nice email back from him one time about, doing all this. And then the third one, the great detective himself. And I got to tell you, you have no idea how hard it was to get him to sign anything. First, as you know, there are no known photographs of him anywhere. He is very camera shy, which I can understand because he didn't want his real photo posted, in the London newspapers for all the critics to know what he looked like. So, but he's also didn't want to be on social media. So I actually had to send him these 2, drawings of him by Paget and Steele. And as you know, he's not very good at opening his mail and returning the mail. So it took months for me to finally get him to sign these and get them back to me. So I'm very proud of those, and I will keep those too. So anyway, there are approximately or currently 732 autographs in the collection. And obviously my hope is to at least reach 1,000 before I turn it over to someone else to continue to do it. If you do want to see the autographs, they're at dfw-sherlock.org, every one of them. And I'm going to close this out for a second. And I will show you real quick. This is what the website looks like. It's very simple. Just an introduction with a very strong tribute to Howard for allowing me to buy his collection too. And then I just have them all alphabetically by last name. And as you scroll over them, it'll show you what the name is. So, so you can then click on it and it'll blow it up. It may take it a minute with this, but so you can see all the different ones. And you can even just kind of go back and forth with the arrows and see the next people or whatever. So, but again, there's 730 of them on there. And so I hope you stop by, and if you happen to know anybody that has played Sherlock Holmes that I don't have their autograph and you can get in touch with them, I would love for you to do that and, share their name with me or even help me and request an autograph for me. And I will, and I will tell you, and like I said, John played Sherlock for years. And so he probably has a better feel for this, but, chasing down the stage actors and getting their autographs, I was really wondering how hard that was going to be. Most of them are grateful that somebody actually remembers that they played Sherlock Holmes. And I can't tell you how many of them they're like, oh, I shared this with all the other actors at the community theater and, made them go to the website and see that I'm actually posted, and they're really jealous of it and everything. So a lot of people have been just wonderful. I will tell you, out of all the ones I've reached out to, and, I've reached out over 1,000 people so far, I've had 2 people turn me down, and both of them, quite honestly, and I don't blame them, both of them were just because of security, that they said both of them said they had their identity stolen and they just don't feel comfortable signing something and sending it to a stranger. And even after they looked at the website, they thought it was wonderful. One of them offered to send me a digital photograph and digital autograph. And I said, well, I appreciate it, but I really only want original autographs. So, and he said, well, I'll think about it. And I haven't heard back from him, but 99% of the people have been gracious and very thankful, and I've been very thankful that they have given it to me. So with that, I will shut up and see if anybody has any questions or comments.
Steve, I have a question for you, and then and also a comment. The question is, who would you most like to track down right now who has proven the most elusive?
Believe it or not, I don't really have anybody that, like I said, that I haven't been able to get so far. I will tell you where I made the craziest mistake was during the pandemic. I decided the best thing was to go through Howard's compilation. And like I said, he's up to 7,500 people, and try to tie them to Facebook. And if it's still a living person, and if it is, see if I could send them a direct message and ask for their autograph. And I did that to about 3,000 people. Well, I don't know how many of y'all have been on Facebook, but evidently, if you send out like 100 direct messages to people the same day with the same message, Facebook has an algorithm that says you're a scammer. And so I was put on Facebook hell for a week. I was not allowed to post anything or send any. And so I cut back. And so I was only sending out like 5 a day. But what Facebook did to me was that they started sending all of them to people's spam folders. And so then 2 months later, I'd write them back. And it's like, well, did you happen to get my thing? And they're like, no, I never saw it. Well, it went into your spam folder probably. And so then so I will say, instead of one person, there's a whole group of about 300 people that I sent, direct message. I've never heard back. And my fear is that it went to their spam folder. And I don't know how many times I'm going to try to break through that. And then I'll also say, I've got 732. I probably have about 200 right now that on Facebook have said, oh, I would love to send you an autograph. And I've sent them my address. And some of them, I actually sent them a self-addressed stamped envelope. And I still haven't heard back from them. So I still, holding out. And they'll trickle in 1 or 2 at a time. So, but that's the biggest thing, is just working through Howard's list and seeing how many I can get off of that.
I'll save my comment for later. I see Larry Feldman has a question.
Yeah.
Okay, Larry, you're up. Larry, are you there? Okay, how you doing, Larry?
I'm doing fine. I
Good,
just
good.
think it's really fascinating what you're doing, because, you know, there are the autographs that you've bought from other Sherlockians. Then I imagine occasionally you acquire an autograph by just somebody that collects autographs, and then put it with a Sherlockian reference, creating a
Right.
Sherlock artifact. And then you actually get people to sign autographs. You know, you talk about the value of your collection or a particular autograph, but you're creating that value right there out of nothing. If he's signing an autograph and for you, that's now an autograph that's officially part of your Sherlock Holmes collection, which I think of as quite valuable. So I just think it's very interesting the distinctions between the three kinds of autographs.
Yeah. Well, let me share a couple of quick stories. So going back to the background of how I got the autograph collection from Howard, he, like I said, had decided he was going to sell most of them, and he brought them to 221 Beacon, and he had set up a couple of tables, and he was just going to sell them there. And when I saw him, and my son Rusty had told me, you know, beforehand, he thought Howard was going to do this. So we got there early, and I went in there and I sat down and I was talking to him about it. And you have to understand, he had them all framed and matted. And so he was taking up a massive amount of space with, you know, about 70 autographs at this point. And so once we negotiated the price, and I wrote him the check, and hey, so I had to haul all these things up to my room, which took, if you know the 4-wheel carts that the hotels have, it took 3 of those to haul them all up there. So that's how big this collection was. And so, fortunately, Rusty and I had driven to Atlanta from Dallas. So Sunday morning, we loaded up the entire back of my car. I mean, you couldn't see anything, and drove back to Dallas. Well, 2 weeks later, Howard calls me or sends me an email. He says, I found another 50 autographs back in a closet. And are you interested in these? And I said, well, sure. And so he sent me the list. Again, we negotiated. This took about 12 seconds to negotiate the second time. And he said, well, the problem is these are all framed and matted too. It's going to cost a fortune to mail them. And I said, oh, you don't have to worry about that, Howard. Well, this was on a Wednesday. I found Rusty Wednesday afternoon. We both worked in the same building. I said, have you got any plans the next couple of days? He's like, no. And I said, good, we're going to Florida. And we actually literally got in the car Thursday afternoon, drove to Florida, got there Friday evening, took Howard out to dinner, got back, loaded up the car, headed back, got back to Dallas Saturday with the other 50. And so then we started posting them or putting up in my house. Well, it took up 2 full rooms, and then down the hallway, and I was starting to spread out into the living room when my wife basically said, you got to stop. This is ridiculous, you know, because this is only 120, and now you've got, you know, you have almost 400 yourself. So you got to stop this. And Jerry can easily understand that. So what I did was I moved them all into scrapbooks. And so I now have, I won't show you, but there's 22 scrapbooks full of these things. And what you saw the pictures, that's how they're mounted on that. So, but I will also tell you the other thing, Jerry, and then I'll get to you, Jerry. So there was a lady a couple of years ago that she inherited her husband's Sherlock Holmes collection, and she was trying to get, you know, just sell it. And so she wrote to me, and I gave it out to all of our people and said, if anybody's interested in all the books or anything. Well, she had a signed Basil Rathbone autograph of him from the 1939 Hound of the Baskervilles, and in him in costume. And I said, well, how much do you want for that? And she said, well, you've been so nice to me. I was going to sell it for $40, but I'll let you have it for $20.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I'll buy that. So I bought it. Well, I decided that was the first one I was going to take to an authentication service and make sure that it was real. And so there's a place here in Dallas, and y'all probably at Backus, who makes all the sports cards but they authenticate signatures. So I took it to them, and within about 30 minutes, they came back and said, no, it's not real. And unfortunately, you know, and so, but it wasn't a big deal since it was only $20. But what I'm leading to, Larry, is what you were talking about is the value of it. And I know Jerry is in the same shape. Is for me to literally figure out the value, I would have to take every one of these to an authentication service and make sure that they're real or not. And they told me this can run anywhere from $10 to $50 per autograph. Well, that's 700 autographs times, you know, even $20. Yeah, $14,000 to pay to authenticate them is not worth it to me at this point. So I probably will never do that. Jerry, you were going to say something?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, love the presentation. Love seeing everybody else's collections of anything. Being a collector myself occasionally. But I wanted to find out, do you have either John Wood or Paxton Whitehead?
I know I have Paxton Whitehead. Do you want me to show it to you, or?
No, I mean, I have it on a crucifer poster.
Yes, and I have him on a full-size poster with Glenn Close.
Yeah.
So
And how about John Wood from the Royal Shakespeare production?
that one I do not have.
Okay, we'll talk.
Okay.
But I am the recipient of one of Steve's cross-country road trips. He purchased a couple things for me, and they were too fragile to ship. So he said, "Oh, don't worry about it." And he showed up at my door. Yeah, you're amazing to do that. I don't know how you do it and get in the car and drive that much, but that's what we do for our collecting habit.
You know, Jerry, I just looked it up. Actually, are you talking about the where he played Sherlock Holmes with Tim Pigott Smith?
Yeah.
It's 1974. I actually do have that one.
Okay.
Thanks. Robin, you had your hand up.
Yes, I just wondered if you had the autograph of Nicholas Briggs, who played Sherlock Holmes for Big Finish audio books.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I tell you what, I can pull some, just so there's his.
Brilliant.
Yeah, he had I'm assuming this must have been older life, because this is a pretty rough autograph. So anybody else have any questions or comments, or want to know if I have an autograph of somebody?
I have that comment from earlier.
Yeah.
I wanted to back you up on your comment that many of these people are actually grateful to be remembered. My actual profession over the years has been as a journalist, and as a result, I have met hundreds of celebrities, and for the most part, it's a rare celebrity who is the aloof person. They tend to be just normal people, just like you and me. And there have been those occasions when I've written to somebody, and it's just remarkable sometimes the response you get. And on one occasion, my path crossed for an afternoon with John Rhys Davies, who's much better known these days for having played Gimli in the Lord of the Rings movies. But he also played Professor Challenger in not a very good film, but I thought he was a remarkable Challenger. I thought he was very well cast, and I told him so. And it was the first words out of my mouth. I said, "You were a wonderful Professor Challenger." And that caught him off guard, because nobody probably said that to him. And he was so charmed and grateful that we spent the next hour talking about, half hour, talking about our favorite Conan Doyle stories. So it's just one of those things. Just remember, these people are human beings, and they like to talk too.
Steve, one person I didn't see was Christopher Plummer from Murder by Decree. I just wondered if you had tried him at any point.
I've got his. Hang on a second. Now I got to figure out how I'm going to do this.
Okay.
Maybe I close that out. There we go. There you go. Are y'all seeing that, or
No.
maybe I'm not sharing my screen? Hang on.
Oh,
There you go.
yep.
Great.
So
Yep.
this is from a different radio play, or a stage show that he was in, and then I got his autograph also. I think this is from The Sound of Music, I think. And then James Mason got his autograph, and then Genevieve Bujold.
Very good.
And now, one thing I will also say, because people all the time will ask me, well, are you trying to collect Watson's, people who played Watson also, or other parts? Honestly, I'm not. I try to focus just on Sherlock Holmes because that's enough to keep me busy. But obviously, if I find Watson at the same time, or, especially on the stage plays, John will know, if you get the playbill or program, a lot of times you'll get all the autographs from all the people playing. So it just kind of falls into place that I've got both of them, or some of them, like one person I was negotiating to buy somebody's autograph. It was the Benedict Cumberbatch, and I was trying to buy theirs, and I thought they were a little bit high. And I said, well, could you go down a little bit? And they said, well, we really wouldn't want to, but we have Martin Freeman's autograph too, if you want that one for free. That's like, okay, for two for the price of one, I'll take that, so that works out every once in a while too. Anybody else?
Steve, I'm just curious to know, like, what are some of the people in your collection where you're just like surprised that they played Sherlock Holmes? Like, wow, I didn't realize this person played Sherlock Holmes, and you have them. And I'm also wondering, what are some that you're hoping to still get?
I would have to think about the ones that I'm still hoping to get, because there's still some halfway famous movie stars that I don't have yet. And so I do want to try to get them. Some of the people, and it's just more that I think it's just because you think of them in a, like, for example, Buddy Ebsen. He dressed up as Sherlock Holmes for one of his Barnaby Jones episodes one time. And Don Adams dressed up as Sherlock Holmes for a Get Smart episode one time. And so those are the ones that are, I think, the most fun, is that you never would have thought of them as playing Sherlock Holmes, or dressing up like him in their own show, but they a lot of them did. And so those are the most fun to try to find their autographs then. And especially if you can find a picture of them, an autograph signed where they're dressed up as Sherlock Holmes, that's even better. So anything else?
Other questions for Steve?
Brian, but you're muted.
There we go. Okay, since you do that comic strip, have you put yourself in your own collection?
No, I have not. I probably should.
Well, it's an easy one.
A major omission.
The funny thing is, and I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I don't sign my name very much anymore. And when I do, I notice, and maybe this is an old age thing, I don't know, my signature changes every single time I sign something. And
Have
so,
you forgotten how?
well, pretty much.
So are you afraid you might get a forgery of your own signature?
That's my fear, is that somebody would say, well, this doesn't look like yours from, what you signed on a receipt last year that I bought for 12
And also,
cents.
have you written to yourself to request your autograph?
Yeah.
How hard is it to do that X?
Yeah.
It's only $20 to authenticate it.
And if you write to yourself, would you refuse?
Probably. Yeah. I'm a pretty shy person. I don't know if I'd want my autograph on a thing. I will tell you one of the other interesting things, and when you get into something like this that you never would have even thought about. So one of the things that Howard was very wise of talking to me about was, when you request it, make sure you say, if you need a self-stamped envelope, I will be happy to send you one, so you're not having to pay for the postage back. Because we all know how poor these actors are. And so if they're in the United States, that's not a real big problem. You just stick a stamp on there and send it to them. But if they're in Canada or England or Australia or anyplace else, you have to use an international stamp. Well, which isn't a big deal, but you can't put an international stamp on the internal envelope and send it back because Canada does not recognize the United States international stamp, to send it back. And so I had a slight dilemma. Well, the easy way I solved it was I put $2 or $3 in the envelope. And I was intrigued how many of these people just thought that was the most amazing thing that you would actually send them money. And I was like, I'm asking a favor. I'd be more than happy to pay for the stamp to come back, And one guy actually sent me back the $3. It was from somewhere in Europe, and he sent me the $3 back, and he said, "I'm not that poor,
Well, I raised a question now, and this may be thorny at this point in the political atmosphere. I assume you have the autograph of Vasily Levinov, the famous Russian Holmes.
Which that one actually, Howard had that one, so that came as part of the collection that I got from him.
So it's been grandfathered in. Well done.
Yes. Now, I will say one of the other challenges is that, and I'm not trying to be selective, but I've been kind of sticking to people that speak English, and only because when I send a Facebook thing to them, even though if it'll translate, it doesn't translate real well. And so I've had a couple of people come back. It's like, I have no idea what the heck you're trying to tell me, or ask for or anything else. And so at some point, if I can find somebody that will help me translate, and write the request better in the different languages, then I may try again. But for right now, I'm just doing the English just so I don't make anybody upset thinking I'm trying to, that I'm a foreign prince trying to give them $20 million, that they'll just simply send me their address back, and social security number. So.
Jerry's had his hand up for a little while.
Oh, yeah,
Hey,
Jerry.
Steve, I've a couple that you probably don't have. Chuck Kovacic and the incomparable Jerry Kegley, who portrayed Holmes and Watson for the Tennis Channel for a promo that was done when Andy Murray was the last British champion, portraying Holmes and Watson in the very room behind me. You probably don't hold those, and I can get them for you cheap.
Well, I wrote to Jerry Kegley, and he wanted $100 for his autograph, and I said, I just can't afford that. So yeah, if you know him and can get it for a cheaper price, then we can talk.
Since
And I would love to have Chuck. And I would love to have Chuck.
Since we're talking about locations, that one photograph of Mr. Sherwood standing there in full dress, I don't know if anybody else can boast this, but that window actually overlooks Baker Street. That was taken in the Sherlock Holmes Museum in 1999 during an event where they were essentially testing whether or not Holmes would be an attraction at the museum. Turned out he was so much of an attraction that he stopped traffic, and they said, all right, we're stopping this. We can't get anybody else in the door. And they rely on the churn. And so that was a very interesting episode, but that was Baker Street back there.
Hey, Steve.
Right. Yeah.
I have one for you. Have you thought to ask Harold Niver, who plays Sherlock at Gillette Castle?
I have not been able to find a way to get to him yet, but yeah, I would love to.
I'll send you his email.
I see Harold fairly frequently, and just a technical point, he doesn't really play Holmes. He plays William Gillette.
Well, Gillette, yes.
But he dressed as
Close
Holmes.
enough.
Yeah.
And I will say, I don't know how many I have. I probably have about 20 or 25 autographs of people who played William Gillette in the Games Afoot, Homes for the Holiday, the Ken Lugwood play. And several of them, when I would write to them, they're like, well, I didn't really play Sherlock, but I said, but you played Gillette and dressed up as Sherlock, so that's good enough. And then they give me that. And the same thing.
And nobody does it better than Harold.
What's the other?
You're easy.
Yeah. What's the other stage play where there's three guys that act like they're Holmes, but they're not?
Baskerville.
Baskerville. Yeah.
Yes.
I've had several of those. They're like, well, I didn't, I was not the real Sherlock, but I was like, yeah, but you portrayed a fake Sherlock. That's good enough too. So now going back to the fun of it, one of the things that I will tell you is as I was sending out the autographs, and John, I don't know if you know this guy, but one of the people that wrote back to me from Facebook was a gentleman named Charles Peters. And he was thrilled because he's actually originally from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but he now lives in San Diego. He's still an actor. And so we started corresponding back and forth, and I will show you his, that he played in Sherlock Holmes, The Final Adventure. And this is his autograph and some of the pictures from the play. But what I was most thrilled about was that once we got started talking, and John, you may be able to say, something about this. He told me that it was probably the hardest role that he had ever played in, or one of them, just trying to determine how carried away am I going to get in this? Am I going to try the British accent? And he had to lose some weight and stand taller and, and all these different things and try to get the mannerisms that everybody knows of Sherlock Holmes. But he also said it was one of the most rewarding roles that he'd ever played, even though he only did it in one play. Well, he ended up volunteering to give a talk to our Society of the Crew, the Barclay Star, about playing Sherlock Holmes on stage. And it was a wonderful talk about trying to get into the role and everything else. So again, that's just one of the fun ones of just finding somebody.
I will verify that completely, and that it's a very, very difficult thing to approach. I first started doing it in the mid 80s. And I'm still doing it. I'm still booked. The tourists in Chicago are going to meet Mr. Holmes later this month in a Zoom call. But I have to say that right off the bat, it was a total failure. It was a total flop. And the one thing that did me in when I first portrayed him is that I tried so hard to be like Holmes that I smoked that pipe enough to make me ill. And I lay down, I excused myself, lay down in a bathroom, which just spun around me for half an hour while the audience waited for me elsewhere. It was abysmal. And I learned long ago that you don't use the pipe as a pipe, you use it as a prop. And that was a big lesson.
Right. Well, the other thing that I will also say is I don't know how many different people collect Sherlock Holmes autographs. I know that Roger Johnson collects them, and I do, and obviously Howard had, but I don't think Howard has very many of them left. And there's some guy in the St. Louis area named Joe Eckridge that keeps on saying he collects them, but I haven't seen his collection yet. But actually, he has sent me his list. He has a wonderful collection of them too. Charles Prepelec has some, and so it's kind of a neat thing. Maybe we need to form our own science society of, the autograph collectors of Sherlock Holmes, So.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I only have one Gillette. Does that qualify me?
Read the book and you'll know more about it.
Right. But actually, Joe has been an inspiration to me too, and his son Peter on keeping the collection alive. And I will say that's one of the things that's also been interesting is, and anybody that's a collector, of anything, one of the things that you have to look at is what am I going to do with this one of these days? And whether it's an art collection or a book collection or whatever, Jerry has to deal with the same thing. One of these days, Jerry's going to have to determine what's the best thing, for my collection, whether it's to pass it on to a university or, something like that. I'm fortunate, unlike some other collections, and Jerry is too, that there's always going to be people playing Sherlock Holmes on stage or film, so I want the collection to continue to grow. And so far, my son has said that he would take on the collection once I'm done and keep it growing. But if for some reason in 10 years or 15 years he decides not to, I will be hunting down somebody younger than me to take it on. Maybe like somebody like named Shayna or something. I don't know. She's gonna have to clear off a couple of shelves on her bookshelf back there, though. So,
all right.
Anything else?
Yeah. Any last things for Steve? Because we're almost out of time, my friends.
I had a quick question. Well, Peter Blau, I don't think he collects autographs, but he collects every Sherlockian on stage. So have you cross-referenced with him to see if you've got everyone he has?
So, see, how do I say this? So if you go to Peter's house, have you been to Peter's house?
I haven't.
Okay, so Peter's house is like a museum of Sherlock Holmes. And The upstairs, he just has bookshelf after bookshelf after bookshelf of stuff. Then you go downstairs in the basement and there's like 36 file cabinets of paper that over the last 50 years that he's collected. And so I talked to him about it and I said, well, how many of the programs or playbills do you think you have that are signed that you might not want anymore that somebody else might be able to take? And he said, well, I don't know. He said, I don't know if there's that many of them, but you're welcome to come dig through the 36 file cabinets and look and see what you can find. So one of these days, my son and I, when we drive to New York for the BSI weekend, is, going to stop at his house and spend the night and see how many I can try to find through that thing. So, because he doesn't have it sorted well enough that he knows himself, but he said, you're welcome to go through and see what I got, so.
That's fine. Yeah, because he wants, no matter if it's amateur production or professional, he wants the playbill.
Right.
That.
I just don't know how many of those got signed. But
Right.
But if a lot of them got signed, it would be a treasure trove because he's got them all the way back from probably the 60s and 70s. So a lot of them that I would never be able to get now off of Facebook because the people are no longer around. So
Right. And if you contact the Nivers, I suggest you call them. They're not big on email. And when they answer the phone, they say Baskerville Hall. So you have to hear that.
All right.
Steve, if you need to contact Harold Niver, I'm in touch with him. So you just reach out to me and I can be an intermediate.
Well, John, like I said, if you wouldn't mind reaching out to him and just see if he's willing to even share an autograph, and then
I'll do it.
There. Okay. Anybody else anything? Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to Derek.
All right, Steve, thank you so much. That was a great presentation, fun discussion afterwards as well. And I think all of us learned a lot. And that's always one of the fun things about these meetings is when, a person comes with a unique topic like you just did, and it's fantastic. So round of applause, virtual applause for Steve.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Before we go, since Robin's on, I do want to announce another, like I said, next month's another cool topic. Robin is a tour guide in London. He's a London tour guide, and he does Sherlock Holmes tours of London. And he is going to do a presentation on his tour of the Red-Headed League. So we will read the Red-Headed League for next month. And then Robin will give us some highlights of the tour, probably through a PowerPoint or something. I don't know if you're going to walk around the city with your camcorder, but Robin, do you want to say anything?
It won't be that. It will be a PowerPoint.
Okay. Great. Very much looking forward to that. It's going to be a blast. And that'll be after the clocks change. So we'll be, in a sense, an hour later, right? Because you're springing ahead. Is that right? I can't remember. All right. But is everyone still, are we all in the same time zone? Are you going to be ahead at that point too, Robin? Because you're in England, right?
But by that time, I'll be an hour ahead.
Okay, cool. Yes. All right. So I think we'll all be on the same time. I know in the fall we had some issues with that. So, but that's awesome. Very much looking forward to it. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. You are always welcome to join us. There's no requirements to join 5 miles from anywhere. Just got to love Sherlock Holmes. So I appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys in April. Looking forward to Robin's talk. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Derek.
Right. Everyone.
Bye, guys.
Derek? Derek?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I apparently got the time wrong.
Well, I record this, Joe, so you'll be able to watch it, okay? I'll post it.
Great. Yeah, I'm on my way back from home from Cincinnati, and I thought it was 11 my time, but I guess I got it wrong. But I'll be happy to watch it when you post it.
Great. Good. Good to see you again.
Hey, bye.
Take care. All right. All right.
All right.
Okay, Larry,
Okay,
how are you? I see you're still on there, Larry. How you doing, man?
Yeah,